There's another part to that in the POH that everybody tends to ignore and forget about, and that is that you're supposed to change the oil irregardless of how many hours you have on it every 4 months. So if you only put 2 hours on the engine, you should be changing that oil.
I'm John.
I'm Jeff.
And this is Keep Those Props Turning. Perspectives and insights to keep you flying, not grounded.
Jeff, oil change intervals.
Yes, sir.
What does the POH tell you about that?
Most POHs specify 50 hours for the oil and filter change. But most people, well, it varies. I know a lot of people that are adamant about kind of an old school idea of they change it at 25 or 30 hours. I know other people that may change the oil at 50 and leave the filter on until 100. It varies. But according to the books, it's normally 50 hours between oil and filter change.
And that is definitely what is in most of the POHs. It's the guidance from Continental and Lycoming on engines. Right. But in looking at aircraft engines, the expectation is that these are being flown and flown and flown. That 50 hours is really set forth for flight schools, for groups that are using them constantly. Basically, every month and a half, 2 months, you're changing your oil because you're hitting 50 hours.
Correct.
There's another part to that in the POH that everybody tends to ignore and forget about, and that is that you're supposed to change the oil irregardless of how many hours you have on it every 4 months. So if you only put 2 hours on the engine, you should be changing that oil.
Right.
And let's talk about some of those things that are involved in that. The 50 hours is really driven around constant use of the aircraft and the aircraft engine. Reality is aircraft engine oil, even though you pay about $12 or even potentially more than that per quart, is really not the same thing as today's automotive oil. And I'm not even talking synthetic oil. I'm just talking about conventional automotive oil. It's only about 6-7% additives. And you can go out and listen to a bunch of different breakdowns as to what all is in there. But effectively, we're trying to prevent carbon buildup. We're trying to minimize or remove moisture that's in the engine. We're also trying to create a situation where we minimize the deposits from building up and carbon, existing in there. But the reality is within about 20-25 hours, most of that has been exhausted because it's only 6 to 7% additives in there. Today's conventional automotive oil, it's 13 to 16% additives. So what does that mean? That means every time you run your engine, you're breaking down those additives. And at some point, the oil is still doing its job. It's still a lubricant. It's still doing its job. But you have nothing in there to minimize the water, to reduce the sludge buildup, to cut out the carbon buildup that's happening inside the engine. And that naturally happens whenever you're running an engine, especially an aircraft engine. So once that we get to that point, you're now contaminating the inside of your engine. And I see all the time aircraft engines where rust has occurred and people tell me, well, we fly it regularly. Well, then I start looking at how often they fly. They'll fly a bunch and then it sits 3 weeks, a month, 2 months. Then I take a look at when do they do their oil changes? Well, they haven't gotten to that magical 50 hours yet. So they haven't done an oil change. It's at annual. Once a year, it gets changed. That's way too long. The corrosion, again, the acids that are in your engine, the moisture that's in there, it's a perfect greenhouse. And effectively, you're stewing the inside of your engine, causing corrosion, allowing carbon and other materials to build up inside the engine. It's just one of those things that change your oil at 30-35 hours. That's only one more time in every 100 than if you did it at 50 hours.
That's right.
And you get a better read on the health of your engine. You get a better coverage for your engine when you're not flying it because you got those additives still working in there. And guess what? Your engine is not going to require as many services from shops like mine.
That's right. Oil's a lot cheaper than maintenance.
Yes.
Back to your original point, you're absolutely correct. The newer POHs, and I'm saying newer, probably 80 and above, but they do specify hours and then a calendar time of 4 months. And again, you hear different conversation from different airplane owners about the definition of regular use. Like you said, I've known guys that say, well, I flew 10 hours this month, but they flew it in one trip and then the plane sat for 3 weeks. That's not really regular use. The worst problem you have with moving components like engines is sitting idle and not moving. And to your point about the moisture and all the sludge and things, running the engine will remove the moisture, but it's not going to remove the acids. It's not going to remove the sludge. So again, you're down to either I run 50 hours or at 4 months we change the oil. That's the only way to get rid of the rest of those contaminants. So
and you're removing the moisture as you're flying. I mean, once you get up to normal temperature and you've flown it at least an hour, and in fact, Continental, Lycoming both say, flying actively in the air, not taxiway, not ground run up, in the air is the only way to maintain what they call active preservation.
That's right.
But when you're running that engine, you're producing more moisture. You're inducing more acids and water and everything else in there. So it's a never-ending cycle, if you will.
That's right.
Chasing.
That's right. When you've got humidity in the air, that engine gets hot and the crankcase cools down. It's going to suck that humidity into the engine crankcase and it's going to become part of the oil. So, regular running accomplishes two things. It lubricates all the components of the engine. It also gets rid of the existing moisture there. Not to say that there's going to be some moisture come back, but if you run it more often, that stuff gets churned around and gets evaporated out of that hot oil. So
it hasn't settled, if you will, within the engine.
That's right.
The inside of the engine is a perfect greenhouse. And when it sits still and you have atmospheric temperature changes on the ground, it's just stewing in there. You got condensation forming, you've got evaporation occurring, but it's all affecting those steel and aluminum parts inside that engine.
Yeah, and Lycomings are probably the tougher ones because the camshaft and lifters are located at the top of the engine, and moisture likes to accumulate at the top and kind of drip off. And of course, it's harder to lubricate those parts too because the oil drips off those parts as well. Continentals, all that is down underneath, so it gets more oil and less water. So,
but it doesn't mean they're not susceptible.
That's right.
I see Continental engines all the time where camshaft and lifters are pitted. Yeah. And yes, you can replace the lifters in a Continental engine a lot easier than you can. You don't have to do open heart surgery like you do with the Lycoming. But you're still creating that wear on the camshaft, and I see it all the time. It doesn't matter which brand it is, and yes, there's different thinking on which is more susceptible. The bottom line is both of them are susceptible if they're not used.
They're all ferrous metal components which are susceptible to corrosion.
Yep.
So yeah, you're absolutely right.
Our recommendation to everybody is change your oil at 30-35 hours religiously. That's 3 times in every 100. And as we mentioned in the other video, if you got a quick drain, pull it out every 100, every third oil change.
Yeah. Oil's cheap. It's a lot cheaper than replacing a camshaft and lifters or, as you say, open heart surgery.
Open heart surgery.